So I'm going off of it right off the rip. Okay? What an absolutely crazy fucking year we are having. Crazy. And I don't believe we're going to see anything like this for another maybe 10, 20, 15 years. I don't know. That's just me predicting. That's me speculating. I'm not even 100%. I mean, what we're going through right now in this year, up to this point right now, today, I mean, it could go on for another 10 years. I don't know. I mean, we clearly don't know. Everybody's talking about how we've got to stick it to the fucking man in November. Well, maybe. I don't see how any of this changes. We're not talking about what one person can and cannot do. I mean, Joe Biden isn't going to figure out how to cure Corona, how to bring the economy back as any more or any better than Trump's currently doing now. I mean, it's just hard facts. I mean, it just is what it is. It's going to be too much for one person to figure out. I don't believe we recover by quote unquote picking the right person. But I'm not getting political here. What I want to talk about is the year 2020. 2020 has been a complete mind fuck from right off the rip. Okay? From right off the rip, it's been a complete mind fuck. One of the things that I believe, I mean, let's just be honest with each other, right? We all went into the new year, and I'm sure you've heard this millions of times. We went into the new year thinking this was going to be it. 2020 was going to be our year, right? So that's not news. We all said the same shit going into it. And what's weird, because I don't often say things like that going into a new year. I don't say shit like 2020 is going to be it, or 2019 was going to be it, or 2018 is going to be it. No, I've never said that. Me personally, I've never gone into a new year saying that shit until 2020. In my mind, I don't know if I said it out loud. It doesn't matter whether I did or not. I thought of it out loud to myself. I told myself, you know what? I think this is it, man. 2020 feels like a new turnaround. 2020, the start of a new decade. And it went to shit right off the rip. Huh? Right off the rip, it went to shit. I don't even know where to begin. And it's crazy, right? Because, I mean, we've seen little snippets leading up to all of these events, right? I mean, we've seen little things that led up to the Iran. Well, it's just the whole mess with Iran right off the rip. Everybody thought World War III was about to go down right off the rip. Everybody thought, well, I wouldn't say everybody, but, you know, the internet was definitely, WW3, you know, and all the memes were popping off on Facebook talking about World War III and nuclear war. And if we went to war with Iran, then Russia was kicking in and China would want a peace. And I mean, that right there was the start of our 2020 year. Okay. Trump being big bad daddy, trying to take on 3 bullies at once. Did it work? That's a matter of perspective, right? I mean, it clearly didn't go the way we all thought, right? The idea that World War III was about to go down almost immediately, that was just intense. That was one way to get 2020 started right off the rip. And I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things where you just don't know. I didn't know. I'm a news watcher. Okay. I watch the news. I pay attention only because of how crazy times are. I'm keeping a close eye on what's going on. I have to. Yeah. I have to. I have a family, and it affects me, economic wise and what's going on and all this other, whatever. It just, and not just me, but other people, you know what I'm saying? So we're all kind of on the same boat here, and as I'm watching all of this unfold, I got to thinking, man, just what if, right? Just what if I was witnessing the start of a world war? Right now, a lot of us have grandparents that were part of World War II. And that was a moment in history. World War II. And to think that World War III was right at our front doorstep. Potentially, okay, I'll track it back some. Potentially right at our doorstep. That is crazy. That is crazy. That is crazy. Okay? And the fact that maybe it was the start of something to come. Well, right now we're all kind of occupied with some other shit right now. Everybody is, not just us, but everybody's kind of occupied with a little something else right now. And who knows, right? Who knows what it could have been had it continued. I would like to think that maybe World War III would have happened has shit not de-escalated just a little bit. All it needed to do was de-escalate just a little bit. I mean, we were watching video of Iranian missiles hitting military bases and stuff. And that was, to me, was like, there's no way we take this shit. There's no way we fucking take this shit and not retaliate. Well, we kind of didn't, right? And there was a bunch of miscommunication between the two countries on why there were missiles shot, and certain ones that were deliberate and others that weren't. I don't know. I'm just saying it could have been a fucking disaster. Fast forward a couple weeks, and Kobe Bryant is dead. Not just Kobe Bryant, but 3 other kids, including one of his, and other parents. Had to be one of the craziest things I've ever seen. My wife woke me up because I had worked the night before. And she was just waking me up to get me ready, or to wake me up early enough to get up and take a shower, go to work, and eat and whatever. But in the middle of waking me up, she's like, "Hey, Kobe Bryant died." I'm like, "What? There's no fucking way. There's no fucking way Kobe Bryant's dead. Not Kobe." Now, full disclosure, I'm not a diehard Kobe Bryant fan. All right. Like a lot of the world is. I grew up to watching the San Antonio Spurs dynasty. And in the middle of all that, LeBron was my guy. So I didn't know anything else other than that. And yeah, I watched Kobe. I want him. I saw him win a couple championships. The years ain't coming to me, but regardless, I watched him win, and I rooted for him. I didn't want the Celtics to win. You know what I'm saying? I didn't want the Celtics to win, and so I rooted for the Lakers then. I'm a lot more of a Lakers fan now, but that's because of LeBron. So, yeah. But the idea that someone that I knew as a kid, somebody as iconic and as big and Kobe Bryant, right? So I'm thinking to myself, there's no way he's fucking dead. This is an internet hoax. So I roll around in bed a few times, just kind of thinking about it, not thinking too much into it, because I'm like, nah, this is just like everything else people do. Oh, okay, The Rock is dead, and all this other, they made some shit up in the previous years. But you get on Google and there it is. Kobe Bryant, dead. And I'm thinking, what the fuck? What happened? And then to find out that his daughter died with him, that's too much, right? And I think that's what hit people the most, other than knowing that, somebody that they idolized and had adored watching play basketball and whatnot. Like, it's one thing to know of someone but like, passing on and being in an accident and their fate was just not what it was supposed to be. But it's another to hear that they had their kid with them. And it was that, to me, that's what sucked, right? Excuse me. That's what sucked. I think that's what hit a lot of us home. Because that could be any of us. You know what I'm saying? That's what makes it real. That's like the last major celebrity death for me was Michael Jackson back in 2009. But that was kind of sketchy in itself, right? But none of his kids died with him, so it's just kind of like, it just, you know what I'm saying? I don't mean to undermine any of it. The fact that someone's dying. But I think it hits different, especially for someone like me with kids, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of you with kids. You know what I'm saying? It could happen to anybody, and that's what hits home. And I think when I found out that not only that, he had 2 other sets of parents with their daughters, and and their fate was the same, and it's just like, man, what the fuck? Already 2020 was a piece of shit with World War III. Well, it was quote unquote World War III, right? It was already starting off with like, whoa, well, time out real quick. What are we doing here? Are we doing this? We not doing this? Is Iran gonna fuck with us? Or are they not gonna fuck with us? That was crazy. Then to hear Kobe and his daughter, that was even crazier. And I'm thinking, what the fuck, man? All in 1 month. That's what's crazy. It was all in 1 month. Now, it felt different. Okay, because any other time any other year, it might have been like, well, Iran, okay, whatever. And then Kobe, and his daughter, wow, that kind of sucks. Even if it happened all in 1 month in other years, I think for us, it would have felt different. But I know that if with all of us looking back at it now, it had to have been like, well, wait a minute. What's going on here? Why is this all at once? Why is this so rapid? What the hell is 2020 doing to us? What's it trying to show us here? And then we get the Donald Trump impeachments. And then the acquittal. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm literally watching history in my lifetime going down in front of me right now. Now, I was born, what's it, 99? I think I was 6 or 7 with the Clinton impeachments, but I wasn't aware, okay? I'm still a kid. I was sheltered from any of that. Of course, as a kid, you've got other things on your mind, dinosaurs or Power Rangers at that time frame and fucking Barney and who knows what else. Doesn't matter. But in being an adult and with your own eyes witnessing an impeachment of a president, that to me was like, it was just crazy. Because I follow politics and I don't like to get political, but I follow politics and I follow the news, like I said, and I pay attention to all that because it affects everything and everyone. Whether we all like to believe it or not, it does. And this was a big statement, right, in all of our lives in the current time. This is a big statement to see a president being impeached. And a lot of people might be, oh, it's not that big a deal. The guy deserves it anyway, da-da-da. Well, Clearly he didn't, to the extent that he was acquitted of all accusals or whatever, right? You know, he was just acquitted of everything. So I'm thinking to myself, is this, not to get political, not to be biased here, but is this, I mean, the Democrats were really trying for this one. They were reaching, bro. They were reaching for something that wasn't there. And I'm thinking to myself, like, we're doing this right now. Like, I get it. It was his final year. You know, we're going into it as his final year. We're making the assumption that it would be his final year. I'm not entirely sure about that, but that's not to speculate. The idea behind it is, you know, the Democrats are really reaching for this one. And I'm thinking, fuck, man. February comes around and we're getting Donald Trump impeached. I'm thinking, like, okay, what are we doing here? You know, and then you wait for the news to come around to find out that he was acquitted. I'm thinking, all that for nothing. All right. Now I know obviously in December they had started the impeachment process, and I mean, they were getting the articles of impeachment going, and I mean, all of it was ramping up to be something, but that was kind of forgotten, you know, with Christmas and the new year. And then we kind of didn't even think about it anymore when Iran and the U.S. started, you know, chipping at each other. And then we kind of didn't even really think about it anymore when Kobe died. And it's just one of those things, like, okay, now it's coming to us all over again. It's trying to come full circle. Late February, mid-February, I think is what it was. And I mean, we're watching history right in front of us. And to me, it's just like, at this point, you had to have been like, all right, what are you doing to us? You get an attempt of World War III. You get the death of an iconic star and his daughter. All right. And and it hit the world. It didn't just hit the U.S. I mean, with Kobe dying, and that shit was worldwide. There was a lot of people that idolized him. And that's why I'm throwing it in the mix here, is because it just didn't impact the U.S. or any sports base. I mean, everybody knew who Kobe Bryant was. And then the impeachment of Donald Trump. I'm not going to go into detail or elaborate on what it was and why. And you know, that's a different topic of conversation. I'm just throwing that in there as number 3 as why it fucked with us. As why 2020 was a shithole to begin with. And then the beautiful COVID-19. What a disaster. Late February, early March. Soon after the impeachment process. The impeachment acquittal, I guess I should say. COVID-19. Talk about living in a moment of history. COVID-19 and us being in the middle of COVID-19 will forever be in the history books. Whether people believe that or not, it'll forever be written down as part of U.S. history. Think about that. Think about that. And what's crazy about it is it's us. We're the face of COVID-19, even to this day. We were the face then, and we are currently the face of COVID-19 now. Now, let's be honest here. At first, we weren't. All right, and I've talked about this, I believe, on the first podcast. The first episode. I talked about that in the first episode, just a little bit, on the idea that, you know, it started with China, then it went to Italy, and you know, we didn't necessarily do our best. But I think it almost felt like we had to be the face of it, right? The U.S. has got to be number one in everything. And to me, as time progressed, it really felt like we had to be the rebel child. But I think that's what we're known for, right? We're known to be the face of everything. We're known. The U.S. is known to be number one. We got to be the center of everything. Okay, fine, right? Fine. We're here now. We're at what it is. But to go back, COVID-19 came out of nowhere. It came out of nowhere enough to shut this bitch down. And I'm talking the whole world. All right, it came out of nowhere to shut the whole fucker down. And to me, I mean, not just me, but the whole world. The whole world was freaked out, not knowing if the apocalypse was coming. And I don't mean it to sound like crazy, because I'm not trying to sound crazy. That was the exact mentality of everybody. The world is ending. Half the world is gonna die. That was the mindset we all had. Of course, that's also what we were being fed through the news, through our politicians. You know, I believe it was out of uncertainty, right? It was out of the idea that nobody really knew what COVID-19 was. No one 100% knew what it was. No one 100% could tell us whether it was that deadly or not, whether it was really worse than the flu or it really wasn't. No one could say anything. Nobody knew. Nobody knew. In all fairness, nobody knew. It was just some crazy shit that was made in a lab, and it just happened to leak, and it just it spread. It spread in a heartbeat. It went so fucking quick. But that's what we get with airborne contagion, right? It doesn't take very long. It doesn't take long to breathe on somebody or to talk to somebody in a matter of 4 seconds, and then they have the virus. And then it goes to the next person, goes to the next person, go to the next person. And China's a big fucking country. China's pretty fucking big with a lot of people. So it ain't gonna take very long. And then it started to hit our West Coast. Once Italy and Spain were starting to get tacked on in South Korea, then we started noticing numbers and stuff, and it hadn't really hit us too bad. I mean, we had Washington State was the first one. Then it kind of trickled down. I think when I knew it was serious is when they started shutting schools down in Washington State. It started in a nursing home. A couple of the elderly folk there had gotten sick, and I remember the news reporting that they were getting sick in a nursing home, and it was just weird because we were just finding out that it was only hitting older people. And I'm thinking, all right, well, they can confine it in a nursing home, right? It's unfortunate, but I'm assuming they can contain that shit. You saw people in hazmat suits and going in and taking out dead bodies. I'm thinking, what the fuck? Okay. And then when it got serious for me, is when they started to shut schools down. And I had, at the moment, when I noticed that the nursing home was getting popped, I remember telling friends that it won't be long before they start closing down schools in Washington, or at least in that area. And that's what happened. And I'm thinking, like, wow, well, first off, kind of wish I wasn't right, because then it wasn't so serious. But the idea that they're closing down schools tells me that they know something a little more than we do. And at the time, we didn't know. They weren't telling us anything. Not to the full extent as to, what really is going on. But that to me is when it's starting to hit. And then you started hearing that it had trickled down into Oregon, and when it starts to hit California, that's when it's pretty big, right? Because then you got San Francisco and Oakland on the north side of the state. And then you travel down, 2, 3, 4 hours, and you hit LA. And then you started to get cases over in New York, and I'm thinking, all right, New York is a distance away from me, but that's a little closer to home than I'd like it to be. So then, but it's the same trend, right? Nursing homes, elderly folk, schools are getting shut down just in case, because they believed kids could transmit it from school to home. And who knows if you had anybody at home that was older than 60 or whatever age limit they were considering at the time. And the crazy part is they had kept reiterating the crazy part is that they had they were consistent with the idea that kids couldn't get it. Okay, well, if kids couldn't get it, they were canceling schools, and for a lot of people, that wasn't a benefit. Wasn't a benefit for kids to not go back, to not be in school. And I remember having to talk to my kids about this. I remember having to tell them, like, yo, we can't go to school because people are getting sick and people are dying. I remember having that conversation with them, like, the second week of March or whatever. And they had closed down school for us late March, I think. And it was late March. And I remember that they had shut it down for the whole month of April. And they had talked about opening it back up in May. Of course, things were starting to feel a little better come around May. The numbers had kind of dwindled a little bit as far as cases go and deaths. And then it just kind of spiked a little after that. And they're like, no, we'll just hold off the rest of the year. That was part of my first podcast. But I remember as schools were shutting down, I think you started having massive cases in these major factories, and it was crazy. Everything was unfolding so quick, so fast, we couldn't keep up. I remember that weekend so clearly, though, when, our government was talking to us, and it was just one of those things where you could just feel it in the air, right? You could feel the fear and the anxiety in the air, and you could feel the panic. And I remember saying that, and it was so hard to understand or to comprehend what exactly we were going through. And what was even worse is when they started to lock everything down, and you couldn't leave anymore. You couldn't leave your home, or you couldn't, if you weren't whatever the word they were using, if you weren't important enough to work in an important in a necessary job, you couldn't just leave. I mean, you had to stay home. You couldn't just leave. And I remember them saying, like, it's just you'd actually get in trouble. You get fined. I couldn't remember exactly what it was for leaving the house if you didn't have to leave. If it wasn't for necessities, you couldn't leave your house. And I'm thinking, like, we're all trapped. We're all living in a world where we quote unquote live in cages. And I'm not trying to be, I wasn't trying to have a rebel mind. The scary part about it is adjusting to the new norm at the time. I remember telling my buddies at work, them, like, think about this. Tried to put this in a matter of perspective and tried to understand this. That in some cases, if COVID never happened, let's just say that we were having a civil war, and we had the right to just get up and leave if we wanted to. Oh, let's go to Mexico, or let's go to Canada. Let's get out of the States. You know what I'm saying? We could escape home from its own terror. Scenario, right? If we had a civil war, or if there was a government override, a government overrun or whatever, you know what I'm saying? If they were overrunning us with martial law and who knows what else, it would be simple enough just to leave. We'd escape the country, and it wouldn't be happening anywhere else. That would be very easy to do, right? In any other case, that would be very easy to do. But the idea that the whole world was going through COVID-19 and everybody was getting sick and everybody was dying. I mean, that wasn't the case clearly, but people were dying and people were getting sick. But at the time, you couldn't think about it. So what I'm trying to say is, where can you escape to? If we had that much fear, if all of us have enough fear of a government overrun or a civil war or whatever, it's easy enough to just leave the country, right? We can go to Canada, go to Mexico, somewhere easy, or we could all fly out and, whatever. The majority of us probably couldn't, but if we wanted to, maybe we could make the attempt to do so. But where are you going? Where are you going this time? The whole world felt like a cage. It didn't matter where you go. It didn't matter where you went. Wherever you went, it was still the same thing. COVID was everywhere. You couldn't just leave. It ain't like you can get into a rocket ship and just blast out of here and go somewhere else. That's not our reality. The reality is that you're stuck at home. The reality is that you're stuck here on Earth in a worldwide cage while this pandemic was raging on. So when I was thinking about that, I think that, I'm not going to lie, I think that maybe that depressed me. It had to have depressed me just a little bit, to the idea like there's no escape. I couldn't wrap my mind around the idea that there's just no escape. It was just a reality that for me was just so hard to comprehend. There's no escape. You have to live in this new norm. So COVID hit, and we are currently still, as we all know, in the middle of this pandemic. I don't think a lot of us are taking it as serious as we used to, and that's fine. I think a lot of us listen to rules and listen to the guidelines just to kind of get through our days, and hopefully, at the end of it, it was worth something. And then May comes around. Late May comes around, and George Floyd is a victim of police brutality. Another black man. And I remember watching the video, because the video had gone viral, man. It was so quick, rapid fire, so quick. Of course, in today's time, it doesn't take nothing but an hour before something goes quick, But we had seen in previous years and previous months of police brutality and inequality and so on and so forth. I don't know the full story of George Floyd. I don't know. I mean, there's so many narratives on it, right? The media has its own thing. The police has its own story. People that witnessed it had their own story. The video has its own story. Like, it's so hard to make your mind up on where you stand. So I won't get political with this. I won't give too much insight on what I believe or whatever. But the idea that, again, history was being made in front of our very eyes, the reaction the world had to this incident is just another part of 2020 doing its thing, right? It's just another thing that I don't believe we could have handled at the time. And so our reaction to something that we seen on a video and what we believed to be wrong or right at the time just blew up. I mean, we were so confined into this small space of reality that I think it just overfilled, and we just exploded. We just exploded. I mean, there was protests from every major city you could see. There was protests and marches and just, it was just one of the, now we had seen other major protests and marches in previous years with other police brutality incidences, but nothing like we had seen in June. Nothing. And I think not just us, but the world was reacting to something that we had seen in previous years. And I think with COVID and everything that had, everything that had built up in us of the years so far, I think it just exploded. I think it just exploded. I don't have a stance that I could share with you guys on any of this. But other than the idea that of how important it is that we are all currently a part of history. And that is, it's not over. It's not over. I mean, you fast forward to now and look at what we're looking at now. Another incident of police brutality, right? Another video that surfaced where another black man was shot. Well, George Floyd wasn't shot. He was actually choked to death. But we have another incident here where a black man was shot. Not just shot, but he was shot 7 times. And I don't know the whole story. And I don't believe anybody really knows the whole story. But the video clearly shows one perspective and everybody else has another. And here we are again. I think people are tired. I think people are tired. They're done. And we are creating history in the moment. We are creating history in the moment. And you know what's crazy? Is that up until now, we've had multiple instances where you could sit here and be like, when's it going to be enough? 2020, when is it going to be enough? Well, I can tell you right now, we still have September, October, November, December. And that doesn't necessarily mean anything's going to change going from December 31st, 11:59:59 into January 1st, 2021, 12:01. That nothing, there's a good chance that nothing changes. But I think for our mind and for our mental state, I think we have to believe that, when this year is done, we can get back to something normal. Well, I'll tell you right now. Right now, what we're doing and what we're dealing with is our new norm. All right, masks and COVID are our new norm. Okay. Police brutality and racial inequality, that's our new norm. All right. And political war has been our norm for a long while. But the intensity that it has been amplified to this year alone, knowing that it's also an election year, that's a new norm in and of itself. And like I said, it's not even over yet. We still have 4 months under our belt. Let's just say things change in 2021. Let's just say the turn of the clock is, that's it. We're done. It was the biggest test we've ever had to face. Maybe. But I'll tell you what, September is a whole new month. October is a whole new month. And those are 2 months prior to November 3rd. November 3rd being election day. You know what I'm saying? So it's very clear that the next 2 months we could be in for something even crazier than we've ever seen. Or maybe not. It could be the calmest 2 months. But wait for the world to see that they didn't get the president they wanted. Or some other sense of police brutality, or the vaccine they claim is to cure COVID and actually turns us into zombies or some shit. Who the fuck knows? I'm not here to speculate on why things have happened. I don't believe any of us have true answers. We have theories. We have some pretty compelling theories on the ideas of why things have happened the way they've happened. And the idea that it's happened on election day, or on election year, I'm sorry, it kind of has to throw you into some kind of state of mind that tells you, you know what, something's not right here. Is this the work of politicians? Anybody can order, a viral leak or a virus leak. I'm sorry. Anyone can order for that. And the idea that, or the idea that, with Trump and the deals with China. I mean, was that a retaliation hit? That's a whole different topic of conversation, by the way. But Trump not being the biggest fan of China and criticizing China for, being, taking advantage of the U.S. and for years and, whatever. That could have been retaliation. Could COVID have been retaliation? I don't know. Iran has just always been at our necks. You know what I'm saying? They're definitely one of the major players with nuclear missiles and the potential of nuclear war. They're not just some country sitting in the back seat or whatever. They're right there with us in Russia and China for sure, and North Korea, and I don't even want to talk about all that, but the idea that maybe that could have been a retaliation, something we could not, or the world could not protect itself from. Maybe it was just a complete accident, or maybe it was just, a narrative that was built up by our government to say that this was China when really it was just a freak accident, something that it just developed on its own. It's very clear now. We know that it was made in a lab. But again, that could just be a spun narrative that we are reading about. You know what I'm saying? We as regular citizens are not going to have the ability to know for sure. We're not going to have, PIs going up in there in Wuhan and figuring out why this escaped or how it escaped, or was it really built in this lab? We don't have that luxury of doing so. So we just take what we're told. Let's just be honest with it. We're just being told one thing, and that's what we have to believe, right? Because there could be no other way. So the idea behind it is maybe that there's this whole theory behind it that all of this is set in motion. That 2020 is, and I don't believe that Kobe is by no means any part of this theory. I believe that was just a freak accident in of itself. I mean, it's just one of those things where you just don't know, right? But everything just seems crazy on election year. I mean, I've never seen it crazier before on any other election years, but people want Trump out so bad that it just right now, I don't put anything past anybody anymore, I guess. So if someone were to come out today and tell me that 2020 has fallen the way it has fallen because of Democrats wanting a Republican president out, they've never liked Trump from the get. So they've been doing their best to get him out. Didn't work with the impeachment. It didn't work with COVID. And now that COVID's here, are they the ones behind the police brutality? Because it's very clear what we're seeing. Black men dying and black women. But white men and white women are treated differently. Of course, that's always been the racial injustice for hundreds of years. I get it. But what exactly are we witnessing right now? Why in 2020? Why more so in 2020 than 2019 or 2018? Why more so now than previous years? Are people really that fed up? Or is there something else behind the scenes that intensifies, that just overpowers our anger? You know what I'm saying? Like, it just feels like maybe, just maybe, and I might be crazy, but maybe there's something else at play here. And I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe this is our reaction. Maybe this is the newest generation stepping up to something and being like, that's it. We're done. We're done with whatever. You know what I'm saying? For years, we ran under this system and we're done with it. That could very well be too. But regardless of what it is, everything that has happened and is currently happening now is history in the making. It'll forever go down as one of the wildest years for anyone, but specifically here in the US, it'll go down as history in the making for sure. And there's no escape from that. We are all a part of history in the moment right now. And some of us are not aware of that. A lot of us are not aware of that. Because now you have to write yourself on the right part of history. You have to write yourself on the right part of history and not be a part of the negative end of it. And to be honest with you, I'm not the one to tell you what's right and what's wrong. I don't know. I still watch the news. I still follow politics. I'm watching the election very closely. It's very important. And I think it's very important for all of us to end the year on a good note. I want to believe that it's a flip of the switch come 2021. I want to believe that to be 100% true. Because every year prior, it's felt like that. It's felt like, all right, clean slate, flip of the switch, time for something new. But that's going to be very, very hard. Excuse me. That's going to be very, very hard for that to be a sense of reality for anyone this year. At the end of the year, turn of the year. For some people, it might. For some people, right now, everything is normal. Yeah, they have to wear a mask, but kids are back in school. Work is still in session. People have regular shit like bills and regular other things. You know what I'm saying? Like it's for other people, everything is still normal. But we're living in times that are not normal. We are living in times that, yes, at the end of the day, we are lucky to be alive. And we are lucky to be living in such a great time. When you're talking about innovation and technology and education and just all the positive things you can think of. We aside from everything, there's no greater time to be alive. But with every decade and every century, there's always something. It never ends. It never ends. You know, the start of the 1900s, they also had, a pandemic run through, killed more. But I believe a lot of what has saved our world from a mass depopulation is the amount of healthcare technology we have and the way we can react to certain medical tragedies through technology and innovation. And, I think a lot of it is we just didn't react the way we were supposed to, but I think we have the ability to maintain something so wild like coronavirus. We, as a medical field, we have the technology and medical innovation to be able to maintain something so crazy. Back in 1918, they did not have that. So I think that's why numbers were crazy. And it blows my mind that we're comparing this to that. Maybe, okay, maybe because it's so widespread. It hit the world, not just certain places, and just maybe. But it could have been a lot worse. And soon after that, then we get the Great Depression. And I believe in 29 into the 30s, whatever. And that was clearly a result of that pandemic. I mean, people died. There was, the workplaces and that's kind of the same trend here, except it's a lot faster paced because of where we stand today as a more evolved society, right? And then shortly after the 30s, you had World War II. So it's kind of a trend. Pandemic, economic fallout, World War. Okay. Fast forward to now, not excluding, not excluding Cold War and Vietnam and everything else that 9/11 that's led up to this moment. But you look at what it is now. We had our pandemic. We are in an economic recession, right? We haven't hit a depression yet. I don't believe we will. But it could have been worse. And I'm not saying follow the trend, pandemic, economic fallout, world war. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there's 2 out of the 3 so far. And I'm not speculating that a world war is soon to happen. But at this point, is it surprising? I mean, it almost happened first before COVID. All right. January, turn of the year, 2020. Iran is over here. We're over here fighting with Iran, doing our thing. They're doing theirs. So it's like, it's not that far-fetched. Anything at this point can happen. The question to yourself is what part of history are you going to write yourself in? That's the question. Again, this is not a political thing, a political statement or anything. I'm not sitting here saying you got to get out there and vote. No. I'm just saying, look at what's happening now. 2020 is not done with us yet. The question is, how do we react? Where do we write ourselves in history? Because history is happening right before our very eyes. It's happening right now. That to me is just mind-blowing. It's crazy. Anyways, I'm done with my little rant. If you guys enjoy the podcast, go follow it, Why So Random, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts at. Go follow it on there. Go download it, because the downloads help. The downloads help to expand the podcast, get it featured, stuff like that. The biggest thing that I would ask from a lot of you is, if you're listening to this, go subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's all audio. I'm eventually going to get video put up. I just need a better setup and so on and so forth, whatever. Go listen to it on YouTube. Go listen on all platforms. It definitely helps the numbers. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like the channel, or like the videos, like the podcasts, and please go out there and share it. Share it to everybody that you know. If you guys enjoy it, I'm not telling you to do it whether you guys don't enjoy it, but if you guys enjoy the podcast, go out there and share it. That's the only way we make this bigger. The only way I can keep talking to you guys is you guys got to share it. Let's build the audience together, not just me, but with your guys' help, we can build the audience. So let's get this ball rolling. We're looking pretty good. All right, we got some downloads, we got some subs, we got some shares, we got some likes. Can't complain. It's good shit. It's good for an early YouTube channel. So get out there, share it with all your friends, all your family. Go to them and be like, hey, listen to this fucking weird guy that I know. It's whether you guys make fun of it or not, I think it's cool. Everybody's listening, so get out there and share it. Get out there and like it, subscribe, download, follow, do all that beautiful shit. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Episode 4 coming your way.